Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Swede Rolls. My name is Toby.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Martin.
Last week, we talked a little bit about creating a kind of power dynamics in a setting, in a kind of sandbox setting. We used Martin's Varangia setting as an example. And as we promised, today we're going to take a look at Martin's setting more in depth and what kind of pyramid scheme we're looking at here. And turned out to be a lot more factions than we thought initially.
I have no idea. I've just heard some in one of our earlier Varangia episodes. I heard something. Oh, God damn it. I'm looking at two pieces of paper. Yes,
filled with
two
text.
pieces of paper filled with names.
And if you're joining us for the first time and you're confused about what all this Varangia nonsense is, first of all, it's not nonsense. Second of all, there will be a link either in the description or if you're watching a video on YouTube, it will be popping up just about now.
That's your job.
Yeah, that's my job. All right, so Martin, take it away. Tell us about your power factions.
Yeah, sure. And as Toby said here, there's two papers here filled with names. They were actually a bit more than I thought when I myself sat down and kind of filled them out. And I would say that one of the reasons why they are a bit many is just, as we talked last week about this sandbox kind of environment, in a kind of campaign, you won't come into contact with more than like a tenth of these.
Yeah.
Because they're very much active either in different levels of the city or in different regions or in different... so they have different interests. So they're really there to just kind of fill out the entire setting. But when we put them on paper like this, there's a lot of them, I see.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're playing, for example, sewer soldiers for the Yellow Council, there's a very small chance that you would encounter factions of nobility, for example, or university factions. Whereas if you were a noble house of Elvar, you would not be meeting sewer monsters. Hopefully, yeah. But on the other hand, that would present a very interesting kind of contrast to the usual lives of these people.
So I'm going to try to put these in kind of the most influential order in the city.
Okay.
And where we start is with the great houses of the Elvar. The Elvar is in their own opinion, non-human race that is the original inhabitants of Varangia. They live in a lot of clans, which they call houses. And 7 of these are really major clans. We talk like thousands of people in each of them.
Okay.
And there's 7 of them, and they're quite old, and they're all like a combination of a international bank, a mob family, and a great house of trade, commerce, and craftsmanship, kind of rolled into one.
Sounds very trustworthy.
Of course.
They've been in existence for thousands of years.
As far as they are telling everyone.
That's true. In Elvar we trust.
Yeah. And these houses are... they don't have any specific order. I'm just going to start with one of them. And that's the House of Serias. They do have because all of the Elvars have a close connection with nature. So they each have like a flower as their symbol. And the Serias have the sword lily as their symbol. And they have steel blue hair. Because all the Elvars have like flower petal colors of hair. If it's natural or if they're coloring it, people don't know.
Or at least they're not telling.
They're not telling. The Elvar says it's natural, of course.
No one's ever seen a kid without the color hair.
Quick question on that. Do they look human in all other ways?
They do have pointed ears, but people say as they're smaller than human ears, they could just cut them.
That is very true. Because wouldn't it be possible for a normal human to actually do that with their ears and color it a bright color?
They also have...
that is... they do have green eyes.
Lenses, though.
But, of course, you could just color your eyes with alchemical things. But this is, as Elvars would put it, grossly insulting. Yeah. So they find and kill people that do that.
It'd be like shaving a chimp and saying, oh, it's my great uncle.
Okay. So they take it very... very seriously if someone tries to imitate them.
Well,
Yes, they do.
They consider themselves a different species from humans, so...
But a lot of people, they say that that's just bullshit. So we don't know. But anyway, they were the first one. Oh, they were the latest one to actually live here before a lot of people came here. We're not sure if they were the first ones. Anyway, the Great House of Sirius, they are obsessed with war in every aspect of it. So they're a large manufacturer of weapons and armor. Mm-hmm. Also, they own a lot of steel works and produce kind of any aspect of metallurgy, different kind of steel types and everything. And they also deal a lot in mercenaries. So they're involved in wars all over the known world.
Sounds safe.
Well, no.
They're very martial kind of family.
Yes, very martial. Lysandi is the next one. And they're very into like the animal kingdom and the basic fight. Yeah. So they have the arena and furs and meat and trade animals and everything like that. You do have the House of Belisai, which is kind of like the art family. So they have theaters, art business, paint and drugs. Of course, drugs.
That's art, of course.
Yeah.
Then you have the House of Degoma, which is the sensual house, if you say so. So they do own restaurants, prostitution, alcohol, drugs, more drugs.
Carnal pleasures.
Perfume and such. Aramas, which is all about style. So they do have fashion. They kind of invented fashion. And do make a lot of cloth and gambling and such stuff. And then you have the House of Verakai, which were the inventors of alatium, the lifting gas. So they invented the airship. So they're kind of the technologically minded.
Let me guess, they also invented new drugs.
No drugs actually. But but we do have a seventh house, and that is the House of Koth. And of course they do drugs.
Yeah.
But also medicine, surgery, and a lot of black arts. They're the scary ones.
Ooh, magic.
Yeah. So these are the 7 most powerful entities in the city. And they really do control a disproportionate amount of the city. But they're never, they're always competing against each other. And then you do have the government.
Which competes against them.
Well, as the government is at least to a 50% consisted of Elvars from the great houses, so of course.
It's interesting because you can draw parallel to real life politicians here now. For example, you can talk about the Clintons and the Kennedys and the Bush families that have a strong presence in politics. Even though technically anyone could become a president, it's very likely that someone from these families would become a president.
Yeah, but even more pronounced.
Yeah, exactly.
And the city councils, they are 6 basic ones, and there's a ruling one and like an addendum. There's the Red Council, who controls the army, the navy, firefighting, and building management. Quite a huge thing. You have, and they do, and the army is called the Redcoats.
It's interesting because I always connect the color red with Sirius, even though Sirius color is metal blue, because the Sirius have such a powerful presence in the Red Council.
Yes.
So color coding it's really an interesting way.
It's logical for them in some way.
Yeah.
Then we do have the Blue Council, who do control public order, prisons, law, courts, judges, everything like that, and they have like the blue coats, and that is the city watch.
Justice within extremely big quotation marks.
Yes. Then you do have the Green Council, who are diplomats and ambassadors, and they're also in charge of all of the election processes and propaganda and administrative affairs and also internal affairs. So
sounds deep.
Like the bureaucratic council.
Yeah. Revision is a bitch.
Yes. And they do have the militarized part of them is called the Green Hunters. Initially, they were hunting down people not behaving as candidates. Nowadays, they're just doing fuck knows things that the Green Council want them to do.
Right.
Then we do have the Yellow Council, and they are in charge of the sewers, plague prevention, sanitation, public cleaning, healthcare, And they have a finger in food production, so it's kind of huge.
It's my favorite council.
And they're always chronically understaffed.
Okay,
for some reason.
I can understand that they're understaffed, but also managing the sewers and the food. Or a part of the food.
Yeah, but of course they did
Hygiene.
Hygiene and... Okay, fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Yellow Council, they have 2 different armed pieces of the council. There's first the Plague Guard, which goes in and
Cordons off.
Quarantine?
Quarantine, and Quarantine Guard. And then you have the Sewer Commandos that fights in the sewers.
That is such a weird...
It's a necessity in a city like Varangia, I'll tell you that.
Okay. I'm not going to question.
Sewer gators, they ain't got nothing on Varangia's sewer creatures.
Then we have the Purple Council, who are in charge of, profit. Tax, tariffs, trade, the mint to make money, and the exchange of coins. They do have the armed force, the collectors, who come and collect.
Are they also in charge of keeping the monetary value of the local, like making sure?
Yes.
The stock market and stuff like that.
Not the stock market.
Oh, okay.
It's.
That's different.
That's private.
Oh, right. But they kind of see the value to foreign coins and their own.
Yeah, everything like that.
Yeah.
Then we have the Orange Council, which controls intellectual things like the archives, the state archives.
They used to have the state archives.
I know they have more archives, but
okay.
but the citizenship archive kind of burned down
For some reason.
They also have like the Great Varangian Library. They have the big university, and they do things like map making and acquiring knowledge, sometimes by kind of kidnapping intellectual people from overseas.
Okay.
And they have...
they not kidnap, recruit.
Yes, recruit.
Yes. They have an aggressive recruitment campaign in another country.
And they do have their military part is called, by the people that are called the book hunters.
Okay. Yeah.
So they also go and get unusual books and get them back to Varangia to just keep their intellectual edge.
So imagine, that Indian guy who was living on the countryside and learning mathematics, the genius, and all of a sudden his door is kicked in by a bunch of commandos who just kidnap him and drag him home to their own country.
You're gonna do accounting.
Pretty much.
And then we do have the White Council, and the White Council is that's the ruling council. So the chief of every one of the councils sits in the White Councils and make kind of the ruling body.
Because it's the absence of... Wait, is it white, the absence of colors? No, wait, it's all the colors.
It's all the colors.
Yeah, white,
so it's the Varangian symbol is the rainbow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of colors just going around in Varangia.
Okay.
Then you do have there is consistent rumors that the rainbow, that the rainbow there is another color, indigo, and that there should be. And there's rumors of a secret council, the Indigo Council, that would run the secret police and intelligence affairs.
I see.
This is, of course, neither confirmed nor denied.
It's the worst kept secret in mind.
And later on, they also added the Black Council, who deals in magic, dark arts, demon prevention, and... such stuff.
How about the graveyards?
That would come under the Yellow Council.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Body handling is part of the hygiene,
Because everything that you don't know is put under the Yellow Council.
Okay, so the Black Council has necromancy.
This is the city. This is the city that has crushed Seagull as like a...
Excuse me?
Mousse.
In difference to the more richly flavored Mousse, Eagle Mousse.
What?
Well, it's some of the traditional
local cuisine.
dishes.
Yeah,
that sounds horrible.
Well, you haven't tried it.
Are they like flying potatoes in this world?
Well, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, anything's a flying potato.
Okay, sure.
So, we've gone through the great houses of the Elvar and the city council. Now we come to the guilds.
Okay.
And there's a few guilds that is really powerful. You have the Alliance of Blades, which is basically all of the mercenary companies that are based in the city, and a lot of like just swords for hire, and they banded together in the Alliance of Blades.
Question about those, because I know the Elvar houses have their own factions, and Serias, for example, are excellent mercenaries. So this faction, what was it called? What were they called?
The Alliance of Blades.
The Alliance of Blades.
Klingernas Allians.
Yes. Are they primarily human, or are they also Elvar? Or
they're a bit of both.
Okay.
And Serias is heavily involved in the Alliance of Blades.
Mm-hmm. So it's not a separate faction. There is some Elvar involvement in these as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have the Clockworkers Guild, kind of, like the clockwork. We talked about the DaVinci punk. Mechanics.
Clockwork-punk or DaVinci punk. I like DaVinci punk better.
So do I. Then we have like the traders guilds, but you have a lot of traders in Varangia, so they're not collected in one guild, so they have several guilds, like the far sail traders, the spice traders, and such.
Yeah, of course.
Then you have the alchemists guild, because alchemy is a great art in Varangia to make everything from drugs to enhancing botany or animals or anything. So,
but this isn't really magic as much as it's chemistry, right?
Yes,
chemistry, biology, and
DaVinci chemistry.
Yeah,
isn't alchemy the definition between magic and chemistry?
Yeah,
like
so,
the thing right in the middle.
Yeah, and well, that's actually the best description. So that's, and then you have like the Guild of Engineers. The Guild of Lawyers, of course, they're powerful.
Sounds like a horrible place to be.
You have the Guild of Craftsmen, just the smiths and everything.
Traditional guilds.
And this is several of these guilds, of course, have sub-guilds. Like the Guild of Craftsmen have the Guild of Smiths under them and everything.
This is exactly like the pyramid schemes we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
And you have the Guild of Delight. To control like prostitution.
Oh right, yeah. Those guys.
Of course, they have to be organized.
Yeah, and so we actually mentioned between episodes that Varangia, as it is now, is kind of a libertarian wet dream.
Yeah,
and the fact that money makes right and skill is really all that matters, sort of, and with the good and the bad that comes with that.
Some of the. Good and bad can really be summed up in the next category, which I have chosen to call cults. And this is both philosophical cults, religious cults, and political cults.
Wait, so philosophy has a cult?
Of course.
Why? Why aren't they like a faction?
Everything is relative.
I've just called them cults here.
Yeah.
Like movements of people that really, really do much believe in one thing.
Fanatics.
Yes.
Philosophical fanatics.
There's plenty of those.
And of course, there's a lot of cults in Varangia because you have completely religious freedom. Complete religious freedom. So a lot of prosecuted people come to Varangia just to being able to, in a really minor or weird way, be free about your religion. So there's a lot of cults. But these are some of the powerful ones. You do have the purebloods, who essentially hate the Elvars and everything the melding plague did. And they want pure humans, and of course, pure humans, they do have some racist views about what is pure humans.
Of course.
The melting plague, to remind you, is the plague that was released as punishment for the whole...
We haven't really gone into that, but
no.
There's a few things.
Essentially, it turned people into monsters, inside and outside.
After the purebloods, you do have the mechanists, which is kind of people worshipping the machine.
The machine gods.
Tech priests, essentially, yeah.
And that sounds pretty badass, actually.
And you do have, of course, directly against them is the machine front, which is the laborers against the mechanization.
Well, I mean...
Because they're losing their jobs to mechanize the... So they're fighting and smashing machines.
Yeah, it's like early 19th century workers' movement.
I see, yeah.
And then you do have the CESTODYTES, which is a movement for people that were have become the melding plague. They were plague victims.
Basically, the plague victims banding together, yeah.
Yes, and then we do have
CESTODYTES. Sorry, just what does that come from? What kind of word is that?
It comes from the father of change, Cestod, and so they have a philosophy heavy on that all change is good. So like kind of they think plague is good because it's changing you into something else. So not all people kind of like them.
No, I can imagine. They're kind of like a weird chaos.
Yeah.
I thought when you said like the father of change, I was like, Sinch? What?
Yeah.
What's he doing here?
Then we have the very publicly blood drinkers.
Yeah, of course. Of course there are, right? Yeah.
Which is a collection, a cult essentially saying that you can come to us and we'll drink the human blood and it'll make you powerful.
Are they
Don't bash it until you try it. They're a great group.
Okay.
I am not sponsored by them.
Of course, they do claim that they have the elders of the cult who are immortal and that they can make you that as well.
Just because I'm a member doesn't mean that.
And we do have like the shining unicorn who worships a unicorn.
Which is incidentally just came out of someone's ass when we were like, we go to a temple of the shining unicorn, and there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're forced to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and they're really becoming
me.
powerful now.
Yeah.
Can you please tell me, what do they do?
Well, mostly you want to become really good, like the shining unicorn.
A kind-hearted
And they're not
person.
hiding anything. I promise.
Okay. The worst part is they probably don't hide anything. But, yeah.
Or do they?
Yeah.
And then we do have the cult of the Lightbringer, which was one of the old NPCs, Ignatius Sirius, who died, or at least disappeared, defeating the Draugr in
the dwarves, the underground monster dwarves. Yeah.
Underground monster dwarves.
Well, let's not delve into them just now.
Fine. Go ahead.
And you have, and then lately, as we have like the gate to the other dimension, we do have a few demon cults and things.
Of course, there are a few gates to hell in the.
Of course,
city.
Just one.
Okay, gates to whatever.
Yes.
It's surprising there weren't more demon cults before the gate opened. To be honest,
There were a few, of course.
There were a few, but yeah, now it's kind of mainstream to worship demons.
After the cults, because of course I haven't mentioned all the cults, but there's we're going to go into. There's a few ethnic groups that really works like
ethnicity.
Yeah, I couldn't really pronounce that.
They're like mobs, basically.
Yeah, you have the people of the sun, or the sun people, which is basically Elvars in human form, but even more racist.
Sure.
Yeah, they're just very, very full of themselves.
I would say dumb racist because they don't adapt at all.
And not at all.
Right.
Okay.
Like, we're superior, but you're slowly dying out. No, we're superior.
So they're the people who doesn't learn from mistakes.
No. And you have the Faltrakian factions, and there was an immensely powerful empire, which after their entire royal bloodline was killed, they have been in a constant civil war for now 130 years. So everywhere on the planet, they're fighting each other, and always have a lot of them are banished from their old homeland, but they're still trying to go back and change it, and we will become kings and everything.
Wait, are you talking about the Sun people or the Faltrakians?
Now it's Faltrakian, but it's there's
kind
parallels.
Of the same, yeah. Interesting. The Faltrakians just I'm going to go to a new place to get away from all this fighting. I go to Varangia and keep fighting.
And then you have the Draugr, and the Draugr is the other non-human race.
Yeah, the underground monster dwarfs.
Okay.
Yes. And they exist all over the known world, and they live deep in the sea, and they have submarines, and they eat people.
What? Hang on. So, monster dwarves, in quotation marks, under the sea, in submarines, eating people.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Is that their only purpose? Eating people?
No.
Well, it is before Varangia. Now there's actually a few stranded there that have their own little town where they live, quite secluded. They live. They're mostly like a predator race, preying upon mankind. They only show themselves at night, and they come from the sea in their submarines, and they eat people as food.
So they're
the most hated creatures in the world.
Okay, so they're opportunistic hunters.
Yes, and there's no one who has played them or anything, so they're really kind of... But they have a kind of a meta function and kind of works in the background. But they're an ethnic group that actually...
So I guess it's a good reason to pollute the ocean, to try to get rid of them, right?
Yeah.
But they're in submarines. They don't drink that.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, and there's a reason why they're tolerated, though, right? Well, kind of tolerated.
Mostly because they're immensely powerful, so people just don't want to touch them.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, so also, I expect these monster dwarves to be quite handy for the mafias.
No, well...
Because you can throw the corpses in the sea, and, you get rid of the corpses.
But now it's really... Of course, Draugr, they don't eat people that are dead. They slaughter them and then they eat them immediately. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fresh. And there's they're very technologically advanced. That's why they have the submarines. So a lot of the technology in Varangia actually comes from trade and just finding things from the Draugr. So they're actually the basis of the technological revolution.
An interesting little aspect of how it used to be in Varangia is that if you committed a crime, you were sent to the pit, I guess?
The mines.
The mines.
And this was during the candidate political time.
Okay.
So forced labor. But what they didn't tell you was forced labor and then consumption.
Yes, because they were actually, all of the technology and metal that they were getting out of the mines was actually trading the Draugr, just giving them people to eat and getting things in return. And this was one of the bases for the rebellion, that the Elvar was just trading people for technology.
When it was discovered, it was like, no, this doesn't work.
That's a hell of a secret to try to keep.
Yeah.
It was better. It was better. How would you say that in English? A better for?
It used to be better?
Yeah, I guess. Back in my days.
Yeah.
Back in my days, we used to trade humans.
Oh, yeah, back in the day. That's right. Yeah,
back in the day. We're almost through here. This is turning into an immense list. But
but we got 2 minutes left.
Oh, perfect. Then we got organized crime.
Great.
Which is incidentally a very small faction.
Yes, it's a very small faction because there's so few things that are illegal. So.
You see, people, if you just legalized everything, we wouldn't have crime.
You do have a few street gangs, and that's actually the biggest part of organized crime. Otherwise, there's a lot of crime, of course, but a lot of the crime networks are so small that I won't mention them. That they aren't a power faction, because a lot of smugglers are like self-entrepreneurs and just smuggling, but there isn't like the huge smuggling network.
I would probably put the smugglers under the trading factions.
Yes.
Just high-risk trading.
But you do have a lot of street gangs, just enforcing money out of the businesses and everything.
But it's interesting because so many things that criminals do, like murder, assassination, bully, hired swords, they're all official. So I guess these guys are they more
assassinations are of course they are
technically
illegal. But you have to just pursue it yourself. So
private investigator, that would be a new interesting character.
Private investigator, excellent Varangia character.
Yeah,
with your frosted glass window.
Oh yeah.
A frosted glass window, that sounds very expensive.
Opening the newspaper
to show that you're a profiteer
today.
Of course.
After the organized crime, we do have the political blocks, which is kind of like unions. It could be just short time alliances between like the Fishermen's Guild and the Blood Drinkers cult, just to kind of oppose perhaps the street gang, the Hawks and the People of the Sun and the Clockworkers Guild. They might be kind of.
I would like to say that the People of the Sun are kind of like their own mobster / gang thing, because they.
So there is just like a lot of political blocks just kind of forming and unforming, and you also do have after this you do have kind of like trying to mirror the great houses of the Elvar are a lot of human trading houses, like quite powerful, and you have
human banks,
Björnetor. You have the house of Toralino, Imbar, Astorkvarts, and Malvora, like the big, but they're still just fractions of the Elvars. And of course, as it's a very financially important, there's the banks, of course,
which is probably the strongest factions.
Yes, and also incidentally, 7 out of the 8 existing banks in Varangia are the great houses of the Elvar.
Great.
Surprise!
Great.
And then you have one human-run bank called Vargassi.
Okay, I saw that you wanted to put quotations in there because it's humanly controlled.
Well, I mean, it's very much it's tolerated, but the Elvari are always playing the long game, so they're always like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a fad, and then it's gonna go back to how it used to be.
But the Vargassi, of course, example the cult of purebloods, and everyone who hates the Elvar, of course, they put their money in the human bank.
Yeah, okay.
Stuff like that.
And the purebloods are a strong faction.
Yes,
a lot of people sympathize with it.
Okay.
But essentially, you could say that just the banking is probably the base of the power of the Elvar, because they're multinational, they have the coherence of like a Sicilian mob family, but the connections and power of a international bank and mega corporation.
That sounds very dangerous.
Incidentally, one of the worst things you can do in this world is to falsify a banknote.
Yes.
That would be terrible. How could you?
That sounds...
We've done it.
Okay, yeah. Then I know.
Yeah.
So what we got out of all of this is probably that the biggest crime group that is in this setting is probably the unicorn cult.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No. They're perfectly fine. No, but this to tie it all up, I think this is a very good example of how you create kind of a cohesive power structure where you can basically play any of these factions or anything opposed to these factions, and you can easily change gears. Yeah, as it were.
Yeah, kind of what I wanted to just, because this actually kind of turned into a long list of me just talking, but this is just really, you kind of just put everything into a hat and just twirl it like a tomboy, just twirl it around. And then you can always say there's a lot of people or a lot of organizations that have the same goals, or rather, they want the complete opposite of each other.
Yeah.
So everything here, as I have so many players or power factions, everything has their natural enemies, and every action gets a natural reaction, which makes the power dynamic in the sandbox very easy to just spin on if you want to.
And it's interesting because you can play an Elvar house and still have involvement with the Sun people, which are, if you look at the power structure, extremely further down below the Elvar, but they still can do things that the Elvar can't do. So it creates this very realistic kind of like push and pull society that makes you feel very much alive.
Because in Varangia, it's as you have all the elections, there's a very important to see that your personal character is quite flawless. So a lot of people in Varangia, or a lot of factions, they don't work openly. They work through clandestine. They work through like strawmen or frontmen or anything like this. So if Serias thinks that their other Elvar house, Aramas, is getting a bit too cocky, it wouldn't be great style just to attack them. So of course you ask maybe one of your street gangs that you're secretly funding to attack perhaps one of the important cults that supports Aramas.
Or you have a merchant's house sell all their stocks in one of the companies that of the Elvar, which means it's going to devalue, which is going to affect them.
Then you go to a fancy party, and then you just hint at the Aramas.
You smile smugly,
and you get your social status. Because the Elvar they're basically like, because there's no one else worth competing with except our brethren. So we couldn't really just kind of kill our cousins in the other houses, because the world would be so boring.
It's very much a game.
So the great houses are also playing the great game, and there's a lot of just kind of double dealing here.
Toby, you really want to play in this setting, don't you?
It is a very interesting setting.
Yeah.
And I promise that as there's so much things, there's very easy here, I think, in the podcast to get the impression that it's completely chaotic and there's so much things that you have to hold everything in your head. But we really do play in like a kind of Manhattan-style huge city. So it's really like if you are in a neighborhood playing in a certain type of campaign, there really is there's not an overwhelming amount of factions that you're going to have to interact with. But there is the freedom for you to actually search them up if you want to.
I'd like to point out something you mentioned in the first Varangia podcast. It's very similar to the Paris novels by Honoré de Balzac.
Yes.
That you mentioned and that you draw heavy inspiration from. Because I'm going to be honest, I still don't know all the Elvar houses, and I've been playing this campaign for 10 years.
Yeah.
On and off. And it's not important because we can always freshen up the memory. I sort of know them, but knowing or not knowing these factions won't really impact my experience of playing this game because it's such a rich world. It goes on without my knowledge. And sometimes it's even better if I don't keep track of everything. So if you're a GM and you're working on your own setting and stuff like this, I'd really recommend, if you have the time and energy, to sit down and create these kind of things. And I definitely think you should do it in cooperation with your players. Because that's the thing, we haven't emphasized that much in this podcast. But this has been a very cooperative, creative process.
Yeah, a lot of these are not my inventions, but they were either a reaction to what the players suggested or straight out of what players in my campaigns thought or did or actually invented themselves. And I just kind of kept it. So it's really a cooperative thing.
And that also means that so many of us have gotten extremely personally involved in this, and this, which is why I'm so enthusiastic about it, because it also gives me a sense of belonging, I guess. It's a very strange adjective to use here, but a sense of accomplishment. The fact that we're actually establishing something together. And unfortunately, we are out of time for this episode. Martin reminded me, so we're going to have to continue talking about Varangia some other time. But if you want to hear more about this, please let us know in the comments, because there's so much more to tell. And, next episode is not going to be about Varangia, but it's going to be about something equally interesting. And until next time, keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Thank you for listening to Swede Rolls. Your support means the world to us. The music you heard playing at the start and the end of this episode is Fireside Tales by Darren Curtis. The intent of this podcast is to discuss themes and issues in all manner of gaming, but primarily focused on the RPG genre. If you have any comments or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Pay us a visit at swederolls.com, where you can also learn about the people doing this podcast and more. For our Let's Play channel, check us out at youtube.com/Swede_fighters. And until next time, keep rolling.